Peter, thank you very much for joining us on Global Sports Jobs 60-second interview series. Please explain who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Peter Davis. I run a sport performance management company from the US, dealing with clients all over the world, and I help sport organisations, help Olympic committees, help national governing bodies manage their performance.
And how did you get to be where you are today?
Well, originally I started out in high performance sport as a physiologist in the lab, and eventually worked up into more management, more administration, and but I started off working with athletes and coaches on the performance side.
And how have you progressed to do what you do today?
Well, it's been an interesting progression actually, and not something that I would have foreseen when I first started. It just, in some senses, it just sort of happened. When I was working at the Australian Institute of Sport, I got more involved with management, planning, decisions, and realised that I was more attuned to that, and I liked that side of the business better than working in the lab and doing the physiology side. So I made a conscious decision to start to learn more of that and be involved with more of those activities, and took some courses, did a management course, and made sure that I was involved in those sorts of activities when the opportunity came up, and then transitioned to being more adept at that and getting out of the lab and into the boardroom, so to speak. And
what type of organisations and job roles have you had in your rise?
Well, originally, as I said, started out as a physiologist, but then I moved to what was called, in Australia, in Sydney, before the Olympic Games in 2000, they had a program called the Olympic Athlete Program, and so I was the manager of sports science and medicine then. And then from there I progressed to the US Olympic Committee, where I was the director of science and coaching. And so that just led to the path then of being more involved with management type positions, and then with the Canadian Olympic Athlete Program. So it's gone from hands-on science to direct management administration. So and the positions have just gradually developed and progressed from there.
What advice would you give to somebody that is looking to develop their career in your sector?
You know, one of the first things I would tell anyone in any role, whether it's my job or a job they're in, is to learn and study and know your field. And it's constant learning. And there's formal education, and then there's the informal, constant personal learning style of reading courses, listening and learning from people. And the other thing that I often tell people, when I first started out as a physiologist, even though I had a degree and so forth, the first thing I did was volunteer. You know, I was based in the US, and that's a fairly common situation in the US, but I volunteered with various organisations and volunteered with Nike, and eventually I was hired as an employee. So I think you've got to spend your time doing some volunteer work and just learning the ropes, and being comfortable with starting at the ground floor and learning the ropes before you try to jump to the top positions, which a lot of people try and do now. So it's just constant learning, constant education.
What do you think the future of high performance, how that is developing? Where do you think that's going to end up?
Well, I think it's only going to continue to grow. I see more, and particularly in my clients that I work with, I see more and more countries taking a more professional approach to performance management, looking to do better planning, better evaluation, hire better people, and have a stronger system. And because more and more countries want to be successful, more and more sport governing bodies want to be successful. So I just see it getting more professional, bigger, better funded from their governments or whoever their funding agents are. So I see it's a field that is expanding, and I've seen it happen in Australia when Australia took a more professional attitude towards sport. I see that happening in other countries now as well, as they see the benefits of either from health benefits, economic benefits, social benefits, or whatever it may be.
Okay. Final question, what's your favourite interview question and why?
Well, when I interview someone for positions, I'm trying to look for the field, not necessarily that, you know, have you done this degree, that degree, and what jobs you've had, but how they've handled themselves in jobs in tricky, difficult situations, and then how they might apply that back to the job that they're interviewing for. So I often do ask them, you know, tell me about a situation or a scenario of either a conflict resolution or specific program or something they're most proud of, to say, tell me about that something you're most proud of, how you resolved the difficult situation, that you can, that you're proud, that's the way you handle it and that's how it turned out, and then how you might apply that to the job you're interviewing for. So it's really trying to get a practical sense of just how they think, how they deal through problems and deal with people.
Peter, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.